Less than a month after Yogesh Rao won over $40,000 in his first game, Matthew Marcus won over $40,000 in his first game. While I try to keep track of Yogesh's games, I neglect to keep track of Troy's games. Because of Yogesh and Troy, I now see a lot of potential in Matthew. After thanking the audience and Johnny Gilbert, Ken Jennings' instruction was, and welcome to Jeopardy! What a thrilling game we had yesterday as book speller and retired librarian Patty Palmer came up with the correct final Jeopardy response in literature, a subject she herself used to teach. Literature is also a subject I myself have learned and am currently still in. You know what? Just because of Ken's preamble, let's go over yesterday's question. The final Jeopardy category was literature. The question was, published in 2011, P.D. James's final novel, Death Comes to Pemberley, was a sequel to this novel from 200 years earlier. The answer was Pride and Prejudice, which I thought was published later. It was. Pride and Prejudice was published on January 28, 1813. Both Andy Saunders and Fickle Fame addressed this crucial part of the clue. The clue referred to Mr. Darcy's estate, by the way. Now let's get into the game. There have been a few potpourri-related categories recently. This time is artpourri. As soon as I heard Matthew answering, I noticed he had a British accent. He almost ran the first category too. All three contestants got a daily double. Anita got the first daily double, weighted 1,000, got it right. Now it's $1,800. For the sculpture called La France, he used the features of Camille Claudel, a sculptor who was also his assistant and lover. The answer was Rodin, which is the answer on the first daily double of the game Marino Neal lost. Even crazier, this was right below the first daily double in today's game. I never did read the question in that game. Let's go over it. Before executing an 1890s monument to Balzac, this sculptor got the late novelist's measurements from his former tailor. This 2021 Disney film set in mountainous Colombia saw Alan Tudyk chittering away as the voice of the toucan. The answer was Encanto, which came up on the final Jeopardy round when Luigi de Guzman lost. Senor Tucan showed up on this Girl Explorers TV show and helped a little bit with learning Spanish. After Anita answered Dora, Ken said, yes, see. It's only his first game and I'm already intrigued by Matthew Marcus. Matthew Marcus is a software engineer from Portland, Oregon, but also something of an actor, is that right? Matthew answered, well, not a real actor. I do a lot of Shakespeare read-throughs where I gather with a bunch of friends, in real life or on Zoom, and we read as many Shakespeare plays as possible. That's definitely good preparation for Jeopardy. Ken asked, do you have a favorite play to perform that way? And Matthew answered, my favorite is Titus Andronicus, which is the most violent and possibly the funniest Shakespeare play, depending on your taste. Ken laughed and told him, I think you just revealed a lot about yourself just now. It's the funniest play. I love decapitation. This was sort of reminiscent of Jonathan Fisher's anecdote when he defeated Madame Odio. Jonathan's anecdote was about Shakespeare plays and Star Wars. Titus Andronicus also came up on the first semi-final game of the Tournament of Champions. This tunnel guy kills Lavinia, stabs Tamara, gets killed by Saturninus, who in turn is whacked by Lucius, so the title guy's son. There's no decapitation mentioned in the question. Now I'll have to read the play myself. I wonder how Matthew felt if he were to see Tyler Road answer Titus Andronicus. Mickey Mantle's number 7 jersey was retired in an emotional ceremony at this venue in 1969. After Matthew buzzed and answered, what is Yankee Stadium? He said, oh. I guess as if he wasn't expecting that to be the answer. Ken told him, not a baseball fan, after he selected the next question. And speaking of Tournament of Champions questions, Eisenhower renamed this presidential retreat formerly known as Shangri-La for his grandson. The answer was Camp David. Shangri-La was the answer on the final Jeopardy round in Game 4 of the 2022 Tournament of Champions quarterfinals. Matthew entered the first round winning $6,600. Anita was in second place at $4,000, and Patty was in third place at $2,200. Patty got the first daily double in Double Jeopardy. She wagered $2,000, got it right, and went to $4,000. Matthew sighed. Ready Priddle, and incredibly helpful for the category Alec D'Urberville. The answer was Tess of the D'Urbervilles, which I have to read this semester in my British literature class. Tess of the D'Urbervilles, more specifically Alec D'Urberville, came up on Tyler Road's third game, The Halloween Show. A holiday I don't like anymore. I also mentioned Tyler Road twice in this game. Matthew got the second daily double in Double Jeopardy, wagered $8,000, got it right, and went to $29,400. This is the highest daily double wager since Jake D'Arruda bet $10,000 at the game Troy Meyer lost. Patty defeated Jake, by the way. I kind of wish Matthew wagered $10,000. Matthew was in a streak of right answers. Nobody answered the last question in Double Jeopardy. Matthew was in the lead at $32,200. Anita was in second place at $10,800, and Patty was in third place at $9,400. $32,200 is also the highest score going to Final Jeopardy since Troy Meyer's fourth game when he scored $32,800. The Final Jeopardy category was mythology. I wonder if Patty teaching literature would help her. The question was, Poseidon carried off the maiden Theophany and turned her into a ewe. Their offspring was the source of this mythical object. My guess was Pandora's box. The answer was the Golden Fleece, which all three contestants answered correctly. Yes, that's correct. Sought for by the Argonauts. The Argonauts came up with a game where Erica Hossack defeated Ryan Long. Patty wagered $9,000. Ken told her, wow, that's a big wager. When Matthew's answer was revealed, Ken told him, we could have a big payout today. Matthew bet $10,000, taking a score of $42,200. $42,200 is the highest score on contestant's first game since Ender He scored $52,001 after defeating two-day champion Dane Raggett by $2. And $42,200 is the highest score on Jeopardy since Ray Lon's 12th game when he won $42,800. Remembering that Matt Amodio won $40,400 in his debut appearance, perhaps this Matthew is also a Modiovian. Even funnier, Matthew Marcus had a similar anecdote to Jonathan Fisher on his first game. Ken did instruction the next game was, welcome back to Jeopardy. What a game our native New Yorker and longtime UK resident Matthew Marcus had yesterday, earning over $42,000. That's one of our 10 highest winning game totals all season. We'd like to see another big payout like that again today, but will it be Matthew, Andrew, or Ricky? One of the 10 highest all season. As impressed I am by Matthew, I'm wondering if I should have gone over Yogesh's games. I'd like to see a big payout like that again today, especially from Matthew if he can continue to rack up super champion level stats. Matthew got the first daily double, wagered $2,000, got it right, now it's $4,600. The mini anecdotal interviews were all interesting. Ken asked Ricky about his pet he had since 3rd grade. After Ricky explained that his pet tortoise, Sunday, is now 20, Ken told him he could watch him into his 30th season of hosting, which scares me. Ender's anecdote was about his trivia partner. Unlike Sunday the tortoise, Ender's trivia partner passed away at 89 last year. Matthew's anecdote was about his college, which he explained was the College of Oscar Wilde. I guess you could say that's wild. This was the College of Oscar Wilde, which is why I went there, to study the same subject as him. I got the same star sign as him, the same hair as him. I hope the resemblance stops at that point. My only guess for this comment was because Oscar died young. I read The Importance of Being Earnest in one of my literature courses, and I have to reread it for my current literature course toward the end of the semester. Ken asked, what's the subject you and Oscar both love? Matthew answered Greek literature and mythology. And then when Matthew had to select, Ken asked, what would Oscar Wilde choose? Pick a clue for us. Matthew answered, Oscar Wilde would choose 19th century names. Ken told him, he probably would. Also being a Shakespeare fan, an Oscar Wilde admirer, and studying Greek literature and mythology, I definitely see Matthew going far in his run, especially remembering the big payout yesterday. I'm also surprised Ken didn't mention yesterday's Final Jeopardy question in today's game, or in today's anecdote. During the Civil War, he recruited for the all-black Massachusetts 54th Infantry, in which 2 of his sons served. The answer was Frederick Douglass, who came up on the Final Jeopardy question on Megan Wachspress's 4th game. Open a bottle to toast this second city of Ireland, with a name meaning marsh. The answer was, what is a cork, which I wouldn't have guessed. All I could think of was Dublin, which I knew wasn't the answer seeing the category and the question. In 1880, the British defeated indigenous forces in the Battle of Kandahar, now the second largest in this country. Ender Buzzard answered, what is Pakistan, which is incorrect. Then Ricky Buzzard answered, what is India, which was also incorrect. The answer was Afghanistan, which is the answer to the Final Jeopardy question on Chris Panullo's 3rd game. Here's Walt Whitman as captured by this 19th century photographer. Nobody doesn't answer who is Matthew Brady. I wish Matthew answered Matthew Brady. Matthew entered the first round winning $8,600. Andrew was in second place at $4,600, and Ricky was in third place at $3,400. After the commercial break, Ken told the contestants, I promised you double Jeopardy, and I'm not going to let you down. I don't know why he said that. The first category introduced was the plays and playwrights are the thing. Matthew should know this. Ricky got the first daily double. He made it a true daily double. Got it right. Now it's $6,800. The son never actually existed in this Albee play before Dad commits a virtual filicide. After Matthew Buzzard answered, who's afraid of Virginia Woolf? Ken told him, that's correct and it's a question. The next question was the other daily double. He got both daily doubles. Matthew got the second daily double in Double Jeopardy, wagered $3,000, got it right. Now it's $13,200. This composer's water music from 1717 is heard here. The answer was Handel, who came up with the game Jackie Kelly lost. The name of the music is Suite Number 2 in D major, by the way. Here's a depiction of King Turnus, clearly on the wrong side of a beef with his hero, about whom Virgil wrote an epic. The answer was Aeneas. I had to read Virgil's The Aeneid in one of my literature classes. I don't know how to describe this. I don't even know how to introduce this. Just watch.
An Alabama historic site invites you to journey back to the 1940s and learn about this group of black military aviators. Ricky.
Wait, it's a Tuskegee Red Wings.
No.
No. Oh.
Oh, yes. Oh. No, we're not taking that. Andrew?
Yeah, I've never seen that happen before. I had to replay the clip multiple times when I first saw it. After taking Rosencrantz and his pal to unexpected places in the 60s, this playwright visited the coast of Utopia in 2002. The answer was Tom Stoppard, who came up on Andrew Heath's third game, and in game 1 of the second week of the second chance final. Like Earth, Saturn gets this kind of spectacular polar light show, a Latin word for dawn. The answer was Aurora. Technically, this also came up on the final Jeopardy round of Matea Roach's 13th game, since Aurora, being the goddess of the dawn, was the background information of the answer. This watery Henry Mancini composition was a huge hit for Andy Williams. At first I thought, it's the most wonderful time of the year. The answer was actually Moon River, which was the answer to the final Jeopardy question on Ryan Long's fourth game. Andrew had a double Jeopardy winning $11,800. Ricky was in third place at $11,200, not that far behind, and Matthew was in lead at $28,800. Matthew doesn't have much room to maneuver today for a big payout. The final Jeopardy category was World War II. The question was, Mamie Reinhardt, who never learned to type using more than 2 fingers, produced this with 1,100 names, including hers. If its name is in World War II, I would have guessed some sort of obituary, except she included her own name. The answer was Schindler's List, which Ricky and Andrew answered correctly. Yes, the typist without whom Schindler's List would not have produced all those lives saved. Matthew risked $5,000, taking him down to $23,800, and is at a 2-day total of $66,000. That's more than Troy Meyer's 2-day total. Ken Jennings' instruction the next game was, our Oscar Wilde's adoring and maybe even somewhat resembling champion Matthew Marcus was able to celebrate his second win all weekend long, and after taking out his Friday challengers, perhaps tonight he could be working on his masterpiece. Matthew got the first daily double, risked $2,000, unfortunately answered wrong and went down to $1,400. February 1989. Reverend Barbara Harris becomes the first woman bishop in this U.S. Church and Anglican Communion. After Matthew answered, what is the Church of America? Ken told him, no, I'm sorry, we have an Anglo-American clue for you. You couldn't come up with the Episcopal Church, I'm afraid. The mini-anecdotal interviews were all interesting. Jesse's anecdote was about his beard. He was 21 years old teaching 16 and 17-year-old high school students. At the end of the year, he asked them to guess his age and they'd answer 30 instead of 21. Meanwhile, I still look 21 according to people in my own life. Some have even guessed 19. Jesse being able to teach at 21 scares me though. Matthew's anecdote was that he does crosswords, which would help in another Jeopardy category. Matthew Marcus is a software developer from Portland, and also the second place finisher in a London Times contest. What kind of contest? Matthew answered, this is a crossword contest. It's cryptic crosswords. I'm better at the English crossword style than I am at the New York Times, though I try my hand at that as well. Ken told him, they're very complicated, the British puzzles, full of wordplay and double meanings. Matthew continued, there's a lot of anagrams, there's a lot of solving, little charades. It's good practice for Jeopardy. Ken ended by telling him, so maybe you'll go for the wordplay categories, I see. Francis Mulcahy, Brendan Flynn, Tanya buzzed and answered, what are fathers? What are father? Mulcahy, priests. Ken told her, yeah, Catholic priests. You got there. That did take a long time, and that sort of reminded me of the question from yesterday. February 1945. Allied forces under this commander returned to take Manila. The answer was MacArthur, who came up on the first daily double on Jackie Kelly's fourth game. Nobody answered the last question in the first round. Matthew was in second place at $3,400. Jesse was in third place at $3,400, and Tanya was in the lead at $4,200. They're all $400 apart. Even Ken noted it's an even game since they're all within $800. The last two categories in Double Jeopardy were the Iliad and the Odyssey, and You Can Call Me Homer. I know Matthew would know the Iliad and Odyssey category since he studied Greek plays. These two, a god and a goddess, with 6-letter A names, take the form of vultures to watch Hector challenge the Greeks. Who are Apollo and Athene? That one I didn't know. She's the loveliest daughter of the king of Troy. The tale of the curse of having her prophecies doubted is post-Homeric. Who is Cassandra? She says she wishes she had died instead of running off with Paris, leading to the Trojan War. Who is Helen of Troy? It is Helen of Troy. This Cyclops traps Odysseus and his men in a cave to eat them, but is blinded when they make their escape. I should know this one. Who is Polyphemus? Yeah, I definitely have to reread the Odyssey. This faithful wife of Odysseus fends off multiple suitors while waiting nearly 20 years for her husband's return. Who is Penelope? It is Penelope. I need to read the Iliad, and I need to reread the Odyssey. Tanya got the first daily double in Double Jeopardy, risked $1,000, unfortunately answered wrong and went down to $4,000. Now honored by a plaque and a station in Roxbury, Horatio J. Homer was this city's first black police officer for 40 years from 1878. After nobody answered Boston, Ken told them, thankfully no more Homers. Even though there's still the Iliad and Odyssey category, the plays that were written by Homer. This Billy Joel song/history lesson references the Rosenberg, Dien Bien Phu, the Etzel, and of course Wheel of Fortune. The answer was we didn't start the fire. While I included this because of Wheel of Fortune was in the question, does Wheel of Fortune actually count as history? Tanya got the second daily double in Double Jeopardy, waited $1,000 again, got it right, and went to $9,400. Shown on TV in a North Vietnamese prison camp in 1966, Jeremiah Denton repeatedly blinked to spell torture in this system. The answer was Morse code, which came up on Ryan Long's second game. This Frenchman who wrote Being and Nothingness was a prisoner of war from 1940 to 1941. The answer was Jean-Paul Sartre, who I didn't know was so recent. They ran out of time in Double Jeopardy. Matthew was in the lead at $13,400. Tanya was in second place at $10,600, and Jesse was in third place at $4,600. The final Jeopardy category was inventions. The question was 1917's elements of trench warfare. This Old West item was difficult to destroy and difficult to get through. And the question is difficult for me to answer. The answer was barbed wire, which all three contestants answered correctly. Matthew wagered $8,000, taking his score to $21,400, and is at a 3-day total of $87,400. Ken sounded more enthusiastic in this introduction. Ken Jennings' introduction was, "Hi, welcome to Jeopardy! After enjoying 2 runaway games in his first 2 appearances with us, our champion Matthew Marcus had to work a little bit harder yesterday. He only had a narrow lead heading into Final Jeopardy, and luckily for him, knew enough about the history of barbed wire to escape with the win and come back today to face Caroline and Greg. It wasn't until after I typed that when I noticed the history of barbed wire to escape with the win is a play on words. Greg appeared on The Price is Right 15 years ago. Now I wonder if that means 15 years before the episode was taped or before the episode was released. Caroline has 13 nieces and nephews and was able to list every one of their nicknames. Their nicknames are Princess, Munchkin, Bee, Bruiser, Bucky, Wonder Woman, Sunshine, Gizmo, Chipmunk, Jean, Fury, Biff, and Storm. I wonder if she rehearsed that before getting on the show in case that ended up being the anecdote she'd tell. If she did rehearse it, I also wonder how many tries it took her. It took me 1 try to read it. Ken ended by telling her, "Wow, now you're going to be the favorite." Matthew talked about his grandfather being the inspiration for him to do crosswords. The second time in a row he mentioned this. Between the 2 crossword anecdotes in Ray Alon's run and now, I love all these crossword anecdotes. Caroline got the first daily double. She waited $800, got it right, and went to $6,800. A small fertile area in the desert, or a band that wanted to live forever, but did not. The answer was Oasis, who I just started listening to. Greg entered the first round winning $5,200, just $200 below Matthew's score. Matthew was in second place at $5,400, and Caroline was in the lead at $7,200. After the commercial break, Ken informed the contestants that there were no incorrect responses in the first round. How did I not notice that? One of the categories was literary title characters. Should be fun. Deuterium is also known as heavy this element. Caroline wasn't answered, "What is oxygen?" which is incorrect. Then Greg wasn't answered, "What is hydrogen?" which Ken told him, "Yes, the other part of water." He got both daily doubles. Greg got both daily doubles in Double Jeopardy. The first he wagered $5,000, got it right, and went to $13,800. Greg got the second daily double in Double Jeopardy. risked $4,000. Unfortunately, answered wrong and went down to $12,200, tying Matthew. The Allies waged a disastrous campaign at Gallipoli. Greg buzzed and answered, "What is World War I?" which is incorrect. Then there was silence, which I thought meant no one would answer. Then Matthew buzzed and answered, "What is Turkey?" Ken said, "Yes, we needed the country." It's February. Why are there Christmas questions? Rosebud came up as an example of a spoiler. Meanwhile, Citizen Kane was the answer on the final Jeopardy round on Mateo Roach's 23rd game. In 1939, the Nationalists entered the capital, ending this civil war. No one buzzed in to answer Spain. Lord Henry tells him, "To get back all my youth, I'd do anything, except take exercise, get up, or be respectable." Wild. Matthew buzzed in and Ken told him, "Matthew, who's your favorite writer?" Matthew answered, "Who is Ernest?" Then sighed after Ken told him it was incorrect. Then Caroline buzzed and answered, "Who is Dorian Gray?" Ken said, "Yes, Matthew had the wrong word. You'll have to take that up with Oscar yourself." Caroline ended Double Jeopardy winning $10,800 after answering who is Dorian Gray. Greg was in second place at $13,000 even, and Matthew was in the lead at $19,800. The final Jeopardy category was word origins. The question was, this Sanskrit word referring to a spoken word or phrase comes from a word for to think. I couldn't even begin to guess. The answer was mantra. Yes, the utterance you repeat during meditation. Caroline and Matthew answered correctly. Matthew wagered $7,000, taking his final score to $26,800, and is now at a 4-day total of $114,200, and is the first 100,000er since Troy Meyer. We're now on Matthew's 5th game. He's been a strong player so far. Let's see if he can secure a spot in the Tournament of Champions. Ken Jennings' instruction was, "Welcome to Jeopardy! In a season that's already seen a pair of super champions, our current winner, Matthew Marcus, finds himself going for that all-important win number 5 today, the one that would solidify a spot in the next Tournament of Champions. Now 4 players this season have won more than 4 games. Will Matthew become number 5 today?" Wait, more than 4 players? Luigi de Guzman, Chris Panullo, Ray Lalonde. That's 3. David Sibley won 4. He didn't win more than 4. Troy Meyer. Oh my god, how could I forget Troy already? One of the categories was Squirrels Just Want to Have Fun. Obviously, a play on Girls Just Want to Have Fun, a song that Cyndi Lauper covered and then became popular after she covered it. Originally, I was going to add this as a category. Then this question came up. It's the unfortunate and illegal event when a Chevy smashes into a Volvo and then just takes off. The answer was, what is a hit and run? Which just made me think of Paula Abdul. 80s pop songs are an accidental theme. Matthew got the first daily double. He risked $1,000. Unfortunately, answered wrong and went down to negative $600. There were 2 holidays mentioned in the mini anecdotal interviews. Dan got married on Halloween. Dan Wool is a high school history teacher from Forest Hills, New York. And you and your wife got married, I understand, on Halloween. Dan answered, "Yes, it has always been our dream to get married on Halloween and have a Halloween-themed wedding. The ceremony was outside at dusk in the courtyard of a spooky, hopefully haunted mansion in Connecticut, and we insisted on having a special cocktail at black saw around the rim. We didn't intend for everyone's mask to be stained black by that, but it ended up being perfect. Back in 2019, I had a friend who was supposed to go to a wedding on Halloween of 2020. I never got an update on what happened, nor have I heard from this friend since before the pandemic. Had it been any other year, I would have said I missed Halloween, especially since it's still February. I started to not like Halloween anymore. I'm kind of scared of it coming up this year." Becky's anecdote was that she and her sister picked up axe throwing before the pandemic as an anti-Valentine's Day event. I can only assume this is Valentine's Day of 2020, which would have been 3 years before this aired. After Becky told her anecdote, Ken turned to the camera and said, "If you're keeping score at home, Dan likes Halloween, Becky hates Valentine's Day. For me, it's the opposite. I don't like Halloween. I love Valentine's Day." I wonder why Becky doesn't like Valentine's Day. Marcus started his anecdote by saying his father's a big fan of Jeopardy before saying where in the states he traveled. Matthew out of the first round winning $5,000. Becky was in third place at $1,600, and Dan was in the lead at $6,000 even. One of the categories was Henry VI. This should be interesting. Since I went through an Elizabethan obsession before the pandemic, let's see how much I know. Encompassing on all sides, like air temperature or some music. Becky buzzed and answered, "What's ambiance?" which was incorrect. Then Matthew buzzed and answered, "What's ambient?" which is correct. This old word for a psychiatrist comes from French for insanity. The answer was alienist, one of the few French terms I didn't know. In 1445, Henry married Margaret of Anjou, an ambitious queen some have compared to this one on the original Game of Thrones. Dan buzzed and answered, "Who is Cersei?" Which Ken told him he got in the nick of time. The barcarolle heard here is one of the most famous tunes by this German-born French composer. The music was The Tales of Hoffmann by Jacques Offenbach. German and French, and I still didn't know. Dan got the first daily double. He made it a true daily double, got it right, and went to $20,000. And the question asked about a British architect when Matthew's British. British architect Richard Rogers designed 1 Lime Street, the London headquarters of this venerable insurance company. What is Lloyd's of London? One of the most famous works by this Belgian surrealist is a painting of a pipe that says, "This is not a pipe." The answer was Rene Magritte, who was the answer on the final Jeopardy question of the second game of the second week of the second chance finals, right before the tournament of champions. I knew it was Rene Magritte because of Belgian surrealist. I originally thought she was French. He got both daily doubles. Matthew got the second daily double in Double Jeopardy, which Ken said got very interesting that he did. Matthew was 6,000, and the question asked about another Brit. Though his son was starring kids' books, this Brit dedicated The Red House of Mystery to his dad, a fan of detective stories. Matthew answered, "Who is Arthur Conan Doyle?" The answer was A. Milne. Wrote the mystery story before featuring his son Christopher Robin and his works. That brought Matthew down to $9,800. A Chicago building is named for this product, and to play on an old commercial, you were soaking it in. After no one buzzed in, Ken told him, apparently too old a commercial, Palm Olive. I watched so many commercials from the 50s and 60s, and even I didn't know this one. I like the fonts. They ran out of time in Double Jeopardy. Matthew was in second place at 13,000 even. I also just noticed his score is the exact same as Greg's from yesterday. Becky was in third place at $5,200, and Dan was in a runaway lead at $26,400. I guess this means Matthew won't solidify his spot in the tournament of champions. This game also demonstrated how important the daily doubles are, since Matthew had a Coriat score of 20,000 and Dan had a Coriat score of 18,000. The final Jeopardy category was European cities. The question was, alphabetically the first German city in the encyclopedias. It was also the first one taken by the Allies in World War II. Another World War II question that's crazy. My guess is Berlin, Bavaria. It's German, I should know this. The answer was Aachen. Another German question I didn't know. Matthew and Dan answered correctly. Dan wagered $399, taking a score to $26,799, and is a new champion. Ken told the audience, with 4 wins, I have a feeling we'll be seeing Matthew again later this year. So now for my final review. Matthew was a strong player, $42,200 in his first game. Counting David Sibley, he's the only one who hasn't won over $40,000 in a single game. Luigi, Chris, Ray, and Troy have. He did win 2 runaway games though. So far, the Tournament of Champions is looking to be just as competitive as last year's. Matthew also suffered a similar fate as Jackie Kelly. Jackie scored $54,800 in her third game and lost in her 5th game. Matthew scored $42,200 and lost in his 5th game. Both are some of the strongest 40 champions I've seen. Overall, I wish Matthew luck in the upcoming Tournament of Champions. All of the eligible contestants have done amazing, and I don't know who to root for. One question still remains though. Is this Matthew a Modiovian? Both won over $40,000 in their first game. I still think it's too soon to say if he is or not. Good luck and congratulations to Matthew, and good luck to Dan Wool. And as always, thank you for watching.